Hello, everyone. Many known faces. As I said before, I feel humbled that for some of you, I know you from some time ago. That you are attending to this workshop. Thank you so much for dedicating some time of your Saturday and to know more about Fab City and to especially know about the former full stack, aka or now being renamed a strategic action plan. So my name is Tomas Diez. I am one of the founding partners of the Fab City Foundation. Together with Kate Armstrong and with Lucas Lemos, I'm part of a management board of a foundation, which has also a supervisory board. And I have to say that for the first time in 10 years since we announced Fab City, we're having a full team working on facilitating, on supporting, and to accomplish the vision of this initiative. So as if you attended yesterday and the conversation that we had with Neil, we discussed about something very important. No, for many years, we had been talking about what cities should do and what cities and regions should do. There is like a pressing need on transforming the way in which we produce and consume. And we are trying to scale the logics of the Fab Lab, saying that there is an opportunity to try to reconfigure our global system of production and consumption based on the small-scale evidence that we are starting to produce within the Fab Lab network and with the use of digital fabrication technologies. This means that the capacities and the skills needed to make things together with the infrastructure can exist in any given context, and the information and the knowledge that is needed in order to make those things circulates globally, right? So this happens again, as I said before, at a small scale within spaces like, you have a Fab Lab in Puerto Williams, which is the most southern Fab Lab in Chile. There is a design that can be sent to a Fab Lab in Shenzhen in China, and there is no need to put that design into a shipping container and to use materials, right? So the question is, how we scale this to a city scale, into a regional scale? That's the question. It's not about the what, but now we are really putting a lot of thought on the how, and this is where it enters the Fab City Strategic Action Plan. So I'm going to share with you a short presentation, in which I'll try to unfold what this is, what is this strategic action plan. Also, being very honest, is something that we are developing. So a lot of, it will be a lot of help if you can provide any feedback. Hopefully, I will save some time to have a conversation the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes of this session. So if you can remember when we are half an hour of the session, it would be great. And then we hopefully we could incorporate some of that feedback, because the truth is that we have an intuition, we have an experience of working with cities, we've been working with Fab Labs. We can just introduce this approach, but we need to discuss it with the network. We need to validate it also by creating evidence as long as we go. So it's well known that cities not only once, but as we see, the need to reinvent their urban model. Right now, we are probably in the July. I think it was the warmest or the hottest month in the history of the planet. The emissions, the carbon emissions of the way in which we relate with the resources that we need to sustain human life are over the capacity of this planet, as well as the other resources that we are depleting in the current model of extraction. So what happens is that, our consumption paradigm, in the ones in the cities, are really depending on global supply chains. In this extreme globalized world, we see how the fragility of that model is exposed, in some cases with headliners like the blockage of the Suez Canal, but also we are seeing like the reduction of the activities in some ports in the world. Right now, there is a lot of pressure or a lot of fear, I would say, by the fact that some ports in China are considering closing because the demands is not the same as it was before the pandemic. So this will compromise the supplies that we need or what we use in cities. And basically we are naked in a way because we have used all the resources possible to move the capacity of production of the city outside it, right? So the other thing is like it's not only about moving materials around the world, but also is how our material ecology is built right now. Is quite, again, it's not viable, full stop. No, if we look around us, we are full of glass, stone, plastic, oil. So our material ecology is really I'm not gonna say the bad word, but it's really broken. First thing is because it doesn't consider the impacts that are created in the places from which we are extracting resources. And this is like a very colonial model. And in the other hand, it doesn't consider what happens after, no? Like which is the material cycle of the life cycle of a product, and what, or even packaging, where it ends after it's being used, no? And it seems like the landfills are not enough, and it seems like burning them is not enough either. So it's really a fact of rethinking our material ecology and how we can make a more fair relationship between humans and their ecosystems that they depend upon. So it's not a secret that Fab City wants and needs to bring back production to cities and its bioregions. One of the concepts that we are introducing recently, it has been kind of underlaying there, but we want to make it more obvious, is that the city is not the limits of the city, right? The city depends on in a territorial level, depends on physical systems that are around the city. And also at the maybe non-territorial level, it depends on these global supply chains that I was mentioning before. There is a component of the city that is connected with the immediate natural systems that is connected to, and that's bioregional level. And the bioregion is basically it could be a geographical space that includes, it could be a watershed, it could be certain species, a certain geographical formation that is part of a similar ecosystem that is highly interconnected. An island, for instance, is a great example of what a bioregion is. Also, the city is connected with bioregion and bioregions at the same time, right? But the interesting thing about the bioregional approach, which is not new, it has been developed, I would say, from over a century, since over a century, is that it considers not only the natural ecosystems or the more biological dimension of a territory, but also the human relationship with that territory, right? So it's interesting because it's being shaped not only by by a chain of mountains, of the watershed of a river, but it's also shaped by the political component and the social component that is added by humans. So the work that Fab City is doing on trying to make production and consumption closer is highly connected with the fact that, in one hand, we need to change how things are today, and on the other hand, the opportunity that we see is, making production closer to consumption can reduce the use of fossil fuels to transport materials around the world and products around the world. It brings back the skills to cities and to regions. It means like you have like a more productive capacity, and your human capital is invested on sustaining the life locally. And also it's trying to do this by I would say by understanding that there is a relationship with the natural system, but also introducing the use of digital technologies, as I said before, right? There is a timeline for this. Basically introduced during the FAB conference in Barcelona in 2014, where we saw the opportunity to take to put an extra gear to the FAB City movement that was somehow slowly growing since 2011. So in 2014, we saw the opportunity to convince the by then mayor of Barcelona to launch a global challenge and start a countdown of 40 years. So these like around 33 years right now. I think it's 32 in some days. I think that this screenshot, I took it 1 and something months and a half. A month and a half ago, more or less. And that gave us like a little bit of a rush, right? It's not only what we're seeing, not only in the news, but actually what we're living. For some of you, maybe in the south of Europe, are living in one of the hottest periods of the history of the planet. And also how we're seeing the changes in other regions, extreme changes of the climate around the globe. But at the same time, we're seeing how broken are our socioeconomical systems based on the current organization of our global economy. You know? So these 40 years is a reminder for us that this is it's not just a great idea, but it's actually a mission in a way, right? So it puts a timeline and it puts a roadmap, and also puts a minimum infrastructure, if you want to call it like that, or minimum set of resources. And this is the way in which we are organizing the FAB City Global Initiative today, to have the FAB City Collective, which is the people that have been championing in the locally to start a FAB City, people that have been contributing on forming the FAB City Foundation and the FAB City Network, people that is part of the research and the work that is related with this larger mission. So these are the individuals around the world that they are putting a lot of energy and efforts to make this happen. The FAB City Network, which are the cities that followed Barcelona, and right now there are 41, and they're located in different parts of the world. We have tiny cities of a couple thousand people and to entire countries being part of this. So the city gimmick, we understand that is to name it in one way, but we understand that this mission goes beyond the city itself and operates at different scales. And the foundation, which we talked yesterday, is the organization that is aimed to provide the financial support, organizational support, and somehow is a organization to articulate the efforts that is being done within the FAB City Network and the FAB City Collective, and connect it all together and make it part of this larger vision when we connect it all together. So that's more or less a little bit of a what and how, but where I want to go now is like to understand that we're moving to a, using the topological network map or diagram. This could be applied to the internet, but not anymore. Actually, the promise of the internet was to be distributed, and it's becoming more like centralized. And so it kind of went all the way to distributed, and then it's becoming centralized because it's following the same economic logics of the extractive capitalism. But we can imagine that what could happen with digital fabrication and with fabrication. Right now, we have a highly distributed network of fab labs and maker spaces making anything, and we haven't seen yet that there are economic interests on trying to control and to build extra layers that will aim to make, of course, or to extract the most value out of it. So this is something to consider. The examples of the internet is very good to learn from what could happen in the near future. So beyond Fab Labs, we understand that such an effort is not about turning small fabrication spaces or community fabrication spaces into microfactories. We will need the community fabrication spaces to learn and prototype. We understand that's the role of Fab Labs, but we need a complementary infrastructure that can support this effort. And this is also related with a question that I was discussing yesterday with the Chief Innovation Officer of Barcelona, is that how is possible that Barcelona is now, or Catalonia is discussing again to build more airports in a century in which we are discussing climate collapse, but also following the old model of the 20th century of moving materials and moving people, and again, building a highly extractive economy. So instead, the question is, can we start to think that cities are going and regions are going to invest in large infrastructure that will allow the materials to be recirculated and being turned into resources for local microfactories that can produce on demand what cities need, which are the type of water treatment systems that we will need in order to make like the right balance between what the human activities and the ecosystems around it and its bioregion. So these are questions that we put also on top of the table, is at what level we can engage cities and regions to invest largely in an infrastructure for distributed production, and not keep investing on building ports, airports, rails, highways, and more infrastructure for the transport-based economy. So this is these are some. I will share this presentation with you so you can look in detail some of these diagrams we have produced with the team at the foundation. But this is just for us to try to understand how at different scales we can start to imagine what type of production happens, no? From domestic production at the personal scale, but also the community production, also that what happens at the more territorial scale with the circular production in large metropolitan areas, and the more bioregional production, including of course food and energy, can happen at that other layer, right? So all of this, again, it needs to be articulated towards a model of an economy that is not an economy that rewards the one that extracts the fastest and the most efficiently, right? But it's the one that actually contributes more and makes value to recirculate back into the bioregion, right, and into the city. So how to do this, we don't know yet, but it's some provocations that we want to launch, and if you have ideas, please share them. So we developed the full stack in order to unpack all these challenges into layers that we will understand better, and it will help, in one hand, it will help us to organize the efforts that we have already done in relationship to Fab City, to identify it and to classify it in a little bit in an Aristotelic exercise. And then in the other hand, it will help for cities and regions to understand where they can operate, right? So this is basically a set of layers that we propose as a way to unpack this challenge that ideally will be just a tool. This is not us telling you how to do what you have to do in your city, but this is mostly like a way to organize what you're already doing and put it in a framework that can also be connected with other cities that globally are making similar efforts. And then we can identify in which of those layers we can join forces and take this into a different scale, right? So the full stack, now being renamed full strategic action plan, is actually, I realize that the name doesn't matter, but actually this is a tool for cities and regions to develop their own strategic action plan in relationship with the transformation of the current model of production and consumption. That's it. So this is not, again, it's just a framework or a tool, but it's not an end itself. And it's also not like, it's not a set of instructions on how you have to do what you have to do. It's very different in different contexts. It's impossible to define what cities and regions have to do from Barcelona or from anywhere or by any mega expert. There is no expert that can understand the diversity and each one of the characteristics of each city. A second, what I have here. Okay. So the strategic action plan, as I said before, is comprised by 7 layers. Within 7 layers, there are, in a way, there is an effort in order to explain how from this distributed infrastructure and fabrication that we believe it needs to be, develop during the forthcoming decades, in which we have already the evidence of places like Fab Lab. We have a base to build on top of that, different levels of actions and efforts that can support and then can strengthen these efforts. No? From Fab Labs that, or maker spaces that provide this infrastructure to prototype and to make things differently and to stop moving materials and moving information, to the needed skills and educational programs that we need in order to train and to form the next generation of that, or to nurture that human power that Neil was talking yesterday. To take what people learn and prototype in Fab Labs in these programs to the next level and turn them into initiatives that they can be small, initiatives that are aiming to create local impact, on understanding how these land in a specific territory, on also understanding that in this territory there are networks, there are communities that are existing, and also how they're going to impact and who inhabits that territory. Also understanding that there is a relationship with the bioregional dimension of that territory and those communities. And then finally, connecting it with a global network through a digital ecosystem that some of you started to see some of those potentials with the workshop that happened earlier today with the team of Hamburg. So this is the full stack / strategic action plan. I'm going to tell you a little bit the layers in detail. As I said before, one of the best layers had been the organic growth of the Fab Lab network for the last almost 20 years. We see examples like the public infrastructure, Fab Labs as public infrastructure in Sao Paulo. Carolina was mentioning some of that yesterday. 12 Fab Labs are already in place. In Barcelona, we heard also the 6th Fab Lab is being set up. But this is one part of this distributed infrastructure. It could also apply to the ideal of that other complementary ecosystem for product, or a complementary infrastructure to form a local ecosystem for production in cities that could include flexible factories or factories that make on demand what we need using local materials. So the other layer, the following layer, is related with the skills, and if you want to call it and learning or education. Starting from schools, as maybe some of you are working already, and a lot of the efforts within Fab Labs start from the early ages. Also, we believe that, and we're going to make a lot of efforts, we're already doing it actually in a project that was mentioned yesterday also, that is called Centrino, on how to develop vocational training programs for the 21st century economy, for a distributed and creative economy. Vocational training used to teach people how to operate a machine using repetitive skills. It evolved, and now it's teaching people how to be waiters and work in hotels for the service economy. We believe that vocational training should evolve and support a new type of a creative and distributed economy based on circular principles, as we are pushing in Fab City. And finally, and together, maybe some of you have already heard about it through Tomas, Vivanco, and Pablo. We are developing a master program in design for distributed innovation, which we aim to basically expand the possibilities that Fab Academy is offering already to the network, and then take it one step further or beyond the technical skills. Is also connecting these technical skills with the needs that Fab City have locally. So we hope to have nodes having students being part of this master, and while they develop the type of projects and the type of not only technology, but projects in which they work with communities, with the local resources and with the local technologies, with the vision of Fab City, and the similar fashion that we do with the Fab Academy at the global level. Then, as we have seen also in the Fab Academy in the past, there are a few projects that have been born thanks to the effort of one student developing it as its final project during the program. And we have seen that some of them have become type of small initiatives that are starting to be self-sufficient economically, and that have been hiring a team I have one smart citizen kid here. It's part of we're growing it also here in Indonesia and other parts in the world. But this was prototype as every other project in the Fab Lab and using the Modela and some of the circuit boards. No? And we managed in a way like a very creatively and taking a lot of time to turn it into a business that is not aiming to be like a super profitable business as a Silicon Valley startup, but it's good enough to pay people's salary and also to keep creating local impact. No, we believe that there are other projects that share that same DNA, like also another project that was born in Barcelona. And apologies because of course, I'm using the examples that are more closer to me. It's the open source Beehive, started as a project in the Fab Lab in Barcelona, in the Fab Academy. And now it's a company in which Jonathan Minchin, which is one of the founding partners, is still part of it. And it's a company that is based in the United States. And they're selling sensor technologies and to put inside beehives to understand what is causing the colony collapse disorder. So the whole message here is that how we take, this is the project of Josep in the Fab Academy in Barcelona again, but how we go from this to something that he can make a living, right? And also while he makes a living, he can also create local impact. So that's the other layer that we believe that we need to work more. The Fab Academy has been an excellent program. It's been more than 10 years that we have been running it, but I think that we need to really push the next level. So again, part of our learning journey has shown us that technology is not enough. And while there are great projects that are coming out of Fab Academy and some of them manage to get to the next level and being somehow self-sustainable, we also understand that usually these projects are responding mostly like technical challenges and not that much like real challenges that are needed at the neighborhood or in the city in which they are located. So we believe that creating this connection and in a way we use a metaphor of like taking down the walls of a Fab Lab and making it more connected with its kind of ecosystem and start to connect that Fab Lab with what's happening around it. No? So thanks actually to a project that we developed with IKEA back in 2016, we were able to identify that our neighborhood that had different initiatives happening already in relationship with circular economies, digital fabrication, social initiatives were already, it was already like a mini Fab City. No? So we started to call it, okay, this could be a Fab City prototype. So it's opening an opportunity to think also like while you are being part of a Fab Academy or this new program that we're launching on design for distributed innovation, you can engage almost in real time or while you are learning with what's happening around you. And this is like a learning while impacting in the real world is something also that we believe is fundamental. No? So in order to do this, we need to understand in which territory we operate and where our labs, where our communities are situated. And this is how it's important, this next layer, which in other cities like in Seoul has been taken to another level. Seoul has been sending some updates via video because of the time difference, but you're going to be surprised in a couple of years by the city of Seoul on what they're going to come up with. Basically, you cannot understand Korea. Maybe some of you can, but they are working on the next on the layer, on the complementary layer of Fab City technologies and infrastructure to support local production. And also they have been very innovative in the ways of organization, which is the fact that they are now a Fab City cooperative. Another example at that level, at the territorial level, is the efforts that have been done in Paris. This is one project that is ongoing and is trying to create a library of materials in which the trash goes in and the products go out. And this is happening in the District 19, if I'm not mistaken. And the Fab City Grand Paris Association is behind it, and it's working together with the local city council. So the next layer is related to things that I've been mentioning before, no? The fact that a city is a complex ecosystem, no? At the regional level. Usually it has been quite difficult, I think, like historically, it has been very difficult to articulate local efforts, and usually there's a lot of competition. Again, part of this, there's only winner that could take it all kind of mentality. but we're seeing like a more and more the efforts that are being done in order to connect the initiatives that are already going are bringing more potential. And this is, I think, like one of the things that we can add from the FAB City perspective. That is not initiative to rule them all, but it's also an opportunity to connect what is already happening at the local level and boost it. So this is an effort, some efforts that we have been doing in Barcelona to connect the public initiatives with the private initiatives, with libraries, with events, with infrastructure. And this is a map from a couple of years ago that sadly, I have to say that the crisis, the economical crisis is pulling Barcelona to another direction, and hopefully we can work on some alternatives with the commissioner, with Michael and other people from the team. But we have great news also because, again, we are now learning from other cities, and similar to what's happening in Seoul and Paris, the city of Hamburg launched the FAB City Association that has a great support from the federal government and from the European Union in order to develop a strong FAB City agenda that is based on the development of the digital infrastructure, but also on the FAB City type of technologies based on very radical open source models, which again, we're going to be learning a lot from, and offers also a lot of inspiration from others for other cities. This is from, it's just a reminder, actually, this is connects from with the diagram that I showed about Barcelona. This is exactly the workshop in which we started the FAB City prototype. And this is the workshop that we did with IKEA, and that helped us to understand that, you know, with the articulation of efforts, we were able to, you know, for 1 week, produce evidence about the potential of local fabrication. We were basically trying to tell IKEA, what if they, instead of, you know, selling flat pack furniture that people have to assemble themselves and become part of their assembly line, they could have flexible factories and material libraries in neighborhoods that produce on demand what people design, which is, if IKEA has democratized something, it's not design, it's actually democratizing the assembly line, if you think about it. So I guess that I have half an hour.
No, you have another 25 minutes. I've seen that you have some few, a bit more slides left. So just,
yeah, don't worry. Actually less than the ones that are in the presentation. We're in the last couple of layers. So then, while doing all of this, we need to understand, like, we operate in the bioregional dimension, as I said before, and it's not just the technology that is going to save us; it's the relationship. I was also mentioning, you know, the way we organize, we organize new models of governance around the city commons, and also how we relate with the resources around it, right? One is the human-made resources, which are in many cases already installed manufacturing capacity that is underutilized. And sometimes, you know, factories, or like the industrial mindset is that I don't want to do anything that is different from what I do millions of times. So that's their business model. And it has been quite a lot of effort to connect the mentality of in the other extreme of a maker movement and Fab Labs, which is like, okay, I will try to do anything and I will try to operate outside the box. No, so this has been a big effort that we have been doing as well, and also together with a team of MakeWorks in Scotland, we are running together this MakeWorks platform, which offers an opportunity to map for Fab cities and regions, to map which are the existing manufacturing ecosystems and materials and industries and skills that are not necessarily mapping like a maker spaces. We're talking about like you know, middle-sized, small to middle-sized factories, people that work without technology, people, artisans that, you know, we can start to connect with in order to understand that this local production approach is not about robots making things for us, but it's, you know, we all making with humans, with machines, and with the natural resources locally. And then at this bioregional scale, I was mentioning before, there is an interesting project, but also some interesting partners that are called Metabolism of Cities. They are developing metrics in order to understand and also open in a very open source approach, metrics to understand what the cities consume. And they're doing a similar approach, but for islands, which are bioregions per se. No? So this is an interesting opportunity Also for those that are in islands, to start to prototyping and to testing this kind of approaches. I'm in Bali in Indonesia, and not only Bali but the whole Indonesia, being an archipelago of around 17,000 islands, offer like a perfect canvas to test this kind of a distributed models of production, and hopefully we can make that happen. So finally, the last layer of the stack, aka SAP, is about sharing globally, digitally information, and this information could be the designs of things, and what travels are the recipes and not the products. Pizzas are not being shipped from Napoli. We have the recipe and we have a local infrastructure to make them locally, right? So similar to the design of, could be the machines in a fab lab, could be the products that you need in your house, could be recipes on how to grow a certain type of bamboo if you want to build with it, for instance. As well as tools, methods, approaches, is a kind of like less technical knowledge, but it's more like based on strategies even that cities are using in their own context, but they can be translated and also adapted to other settings. And something that was mentioned yesterday, which is the big, it's like the holy grail of a shared global metrics, which sounds very easy, but it's very complex. I have to say this. Being able to measure what the city produces and what consumes. There are some estimates. It's very, I would say, difficult to engage with cities, both in the public and the private sector, because this is highly sensitive information for many reasons. So this is the strategic action plan. As I said, it should help, as I did, that identified with initiatives that I know that are happening in Barcelona and in some other fab cities. Hopefully it can help also cities and regions in which you are already to identify and connect with these layers, right? And then you might realize, okay, there's more efforts done at this level and less effort done at this level. So it could help you also to, strategize, which would be like at your next moves and how you're going to pitch either to your local community or to your local public officers where the efforts should be made. No, so these are complementary distributed infrastructures that we have today. Now we have around 2,000 fab labs, and we have only 41 cities part of Fab City network. Fab labs are demonstrated at a small scale that this distributed production, distributed knowledge sharing, forming a global community works in some way, and it's changing people's lives at many levels. We definitely need to try to do this at the city level, and we are gonna do it actually, and we're committed to do it for the next 30 something years. And we have a foundation, and we have some funds to at least sustain the foundation for the next few years. So we are really going to work on this. And the way in which you can approach this is not linear. No, you don't need to start from the bottom or from the top. This is something that will happen differently in different cities. And in order to figure out a little bit more about this in a more playful way, we even have developed a set of cards that are used as a game. And since we cannot have the opportunity to meet physically, you're gonna be part. Some of you are interested on developing developing your own strategic action plan, or at least the first iteration, and that could help you to identify what is already happening and also start to envision what you could make happen in your city. I recommend you that you look at the workshop that Ida is going to host. At what time, Ida, if you are there?
I'm here at 5:30 CET.
At 5:30, yeah, so CET.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I think with this, I finished. I took an extra 5 minutes. Sorry about that, but I'm open for feedback, questions, or you can either write down in the chat, or please open your microphone or raise your hand, and we will give the word to you. Okay. Not everyone at the same time. Let me stop the screen sharing.
Hi, Thomas. This is Geoffroy from Montreal.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you again. Long time no see. Yeah, very interesting progress and new thinking about how to give tools and methodology. This is very helpful for our new Fab City in Montreal, where we are now part of the family officially from yesterday. And our region also, like Bas-Saint-Laurent or other regions, the bio region is very nice integration with the full stack now is the SAP. And like, you know, I'm working about skill development for many years now inside the movement, but now I think it's time to have a way to digitize data about skills, about needs in the organization and on the field. And so for me, the second layer is the more important. And that's why I'm using the movement of digital badges with the standard open badges. I present a conference in close to an hour about that in English, if you want to come. It's about micro-credentialing and badging. And the thing is, we can generate a lot of data because we have metadata inside recognition certificate, and it's an open one. So for me, the next step already is to connect digital certification to be discovered by algorithms and AI already tools. They are existing. And in the US market about badges, they talk about open skill network. So all those framework of skills, they have to be open also. So they have the same description and they start the rich descriptor, the rich skill descriptor. And it's a way to encrypt data about skill and then generate pathways between school learning opportunities inside, outside, formal, non-formal to the real job market. And we can connect with the new skills or the actual skill, but they need to be upskill. So that's why we need a new language, and that's why badges now it's on the way. We are now close to 100 million of badges issued around the world. We have a lot of open source platforms. So it's now a very big deal about how to align training and work and in our new era of new cities like Fab City Network. So I'm stopped about that. I will do my presentation in 45 minutes, but then we can talk further. And for sure, we are now inside the movement closely. So I will push those ideas for sure.
Absolutely, and I suggest also that we try to make or to create a conversation with the team led by Tomas Vivanco, because we are approaching. I talked about the master in design for distributed innovation, but the truth is that we are aiming to build a platform for learning, right? And this is not about like an academy, but it's more like almost like a semi-informal learning, more closest to needs, more like a badging system than an issue of a diploma by a recognized institution, let's say, right? So when we talk about vocational training, executive training is super useful, but also even, and it was been an idea forever, since forever in the FAB Academy, is this idea like the 20 certificates, 20 certificates, you don't need to do them linearly in one year, but it is like you can progressively do them and then assembly them. And then once you have accomplished some of them, you then have the diploma. But also even in the side of the Academy, there are other programs. So how you define like you are a biologist expert on textiles and have half of the Fab City, the Fab Academy accomplished, right? So yeah, we need something like the badges. So please, let's connect more, and this is great hope for the network.
And just to finish that point, because it's very increasing about the use of badging, and the US or the North American market and training is about skill-based hiring and skill-based training. It's not a seat time, it's more about mastering and skill as a currency. And then they can generate new and fast thing, the way to change the economy and to work together. So it's a very interesting moment for movement. And now it's 10 years about the movement of the badging, and I'm in for 6 years, but yeah, it's very enthusiastic moment for that.
Well, no, it's interesting that you mentioned, because I mean, please, anyone jump in, but we're seeing like the collapse of many national sovereign currencies. And there is a project to have a digital euro in some years. I'm from Venezuela. It was launched a new digital currency. It's a bit of almost a joke, but it's done in a very, I would say, disorganized way. The government just decided to delete 6 zeros from the currency and launch a new digital currency. This is the way of not doing it. And also China is launching its own digital currency. But at the same time, we're seeing like the emergence of the cryptocurrencies. And what I started something like as a very, even almost from the hacker movement, very on the trenches outside of the society. Now, cryptocurrencies are becoming like a big asset for investment and a lot of speculation. Yes, that's right. But also are providing, again, using the open source philosophy, the opportunity to design forms of circulating value. And then Jonathan Ledgard yesterday was mentioning in the panel moderated by Kate. He launched you guys should connect with the Ethereum Foundation. It's like, yeah, we have been talking with people from the Ethereum Foundation for some years. And from Outlier Ventures and from other initiatives that are trying to, to scale up the impact of blockchain. So that would be also an interesting effort to connect, Yofra. Yeah. Anyone wants to jump in and talk?
I think Shanna has a question.
And okay, Shanna, and then Antonio that opened the microphone. Shanna, we cannot hear you.
There we go. Hi. Well, I posted to the chat, how do we prepare communities to understand how much the economy has changed in the face of what is proven to be stubborn educational models and policies, hiring practices, and the largest online hiring platforms still conform to all that as well. I have children in their 20s who are navigating this now, and coming alongside them and seeing all the frustration, not being able to fully represent what you bring, not being able to make those connections in a meaningful way. And when the AIs and whatever are actually reducing you from what's already a hyper reduction of who you are, we're not on the trajectory towards pathing into what I posted above, the credentialing. I'm so like, my heart skips a beat to think about the micro credentials. I mean, the credentialing, organization that identified 967,734 unique credentials in the US. We're not the way that we're, our educational, everything that we've designed is not preparing anybody to ramp into that, or for that to even be kind of reconciled now in any meaningful way. It feels like we're so off track. But that's a whole cultural enculturation too, because everybody's still looking to the old ways of presenting your resume, presenting your grades, presenting these things that are they really meaningfully moving us in that direction?
And Shanna, where are you and where are you from?
I'm in Hamden, Massachusetts. I'm actually a Pioneer Valley girl here, west of Boston. The Five College area. I graduated from Mount Holyoke back in '89, and I've actually raised 6 children through now 16 to 28 through a very rapidly changing environment. side story, but I ended up kind of pulling my kids off track in my own learning journey when they were young, and ended up, I don't like the term homeschooling either. I think, my friend Rick Smyer at Communities of the Future, I brought this up at a session yesterday too, raised the word at some point, communiversity. This kind of distributed learning environment, the reconnecting across generations, the cultivation and leveraging of our already established public infrastructure, perhaps the schools, like you said, the libraries, all those things. When everybody's, has interests to upskill, to manifest their highest and best, to contribute the most of what they bring, right? And so much of that right now being frustrated because we continue to roll on the same track. And so I'm right in the midst of all those frustrations myself, just coming along, like I said, coming alongside my kids and then watching how it changed. I tried to roll with opening them up, in ways that the schools weren't allowed to, like open up, learn these technologies. My oldest son's a filmmaker who was teaching filmmakers when he was 21, because of what he learned online and being able to have the agility, kind of learning how to learn. And having the agility to come in and out of environments like this, which they kind of know, but they're not using, many aren't using in that way either. It's more social environments, not so much upskilling, building relationships, advancing in your own unique path. So it's a whole cultural change though. So I'm just interested to hear, since you've been in, I'm sort of new to Fab Labs, but keenly interested in establishing work here in our region in the Pioneer Valley. And I'm so keen to hear who's making progress in that that's really measurable and that we could show, and how do we, I think my other big question is how do we, we read all the papers, and I think the fact that we're all here, we've navigated space online ourselves out of our own curiosity questions, right? That we have in our minds and our imagination something that's possible today. And I think for me, I've thought about, can we create also a community envisionarium space, envisionarium, where we can repopulate people's imaginations around what's possible in a way that they're not reading white papers, right? They're not, but that is deeply intellectually grounded and very, mathematically supported, but that also could be profoundly beautiful and healing and enriching and community building. So that's been, I guess, a question for me too. How can we create re-envisioning space for that to happen?
There's so many words that are resonating with that you say that resonates with what we're doing in one way or another. I think when you talk about doing things in a meaningful way, that's a key element, is finding meaning and not necessarily copying, following, but is what also relates with this idea that I was mentioning before, that we cannot just come with a set of instructions that you need to follow because it's not going to work. It's going to have the same meaning or the same significance for many cultures and many people around the world. We are mostly now part of a northern West. I am now in Indonesia, but most of the majority of the world lives in the south, well, not in the south, but mostly not following the same cultural, I think, dominance that the West have had in the last couple of centuries. So we need to create those opportunities, in my opinion, right? Like we don't have a formula, and we should recognize that there is no formula. But I believe that what we're trying to do here and within these communities is to create the opportunities for things to happen and to celebrate the diversity that are going to happen differently in different locations, right? And then putting together a global network that is able to share an approach to how to transform the way we are sustaining our lives, and connecting these efforts and making it and aggregating these efforts in order to create a ripple that hopefully can create transformation is something that is definitely part of the agenda. And then you mentioned the learning how to learn. It's SOFAB Academy, which is the educational program of the Fab Labs. It's really like a journey in which you are challenging yourself every day of the program, because and even after you finish it, from one in one hand, technology keeps evolving. So even if you learn how to program in any given language or to use a certain type of machine, in a couple of years, you are obsolete. So you need to continuously keep learning, but also reality changes so dramatically, so that you really need to learn how to learn. So definitely, I think like what you say is again resonates so much. There is a team in Boston that is pushing the Fab City agenda, and this is a Boston urban, mostly the greater Boston, Cambridge, and Somerville. Sherry Lassiter, which is the director of Fab Foundation, will be the primary contact, but we can follow up with you. And then I don't know how close are you, but in the Hudson Valley in upper state New York, I recommend you to visit Kingston. It's a small city in the north of New York, also making big efforts for the transition.
Well, I think, and just to kind of loop around on that, for me, a big concern today is that our own children don't feel, they're fearful when there's so much work, there's so much to do, there's so much that's not, we've created more gateways than pathways, kind of blockades to them. And I think it's a challenge, to take very seriously for the well-being of the community, right? When we've just created obstacles and not welcomed them and not said, hey, I'm going to mentor you, I'm going to apprentice you, I'm going to recognize you, I'm going to take 5 minutes to actually get to know you, and not just have you spend 5 hours trying to frustrate yourself creating an oversimplified resume of who you are. I mean, I feel like the question around how we're spending our time, if we were really accounting for it, there are a lot of externalities there too. So
I'm sorry, I have to jump on here.
Yeah.
We already, it's like 1 hour is already gone.
Yeah.
Thank you for the very beautiful session, and we'll follow up on this very soon.
Just one thing, can you please, the ones that didn't manage, I know Antonio wanted to share something, can you please log into the platform and maybe post your comments there if you want, or please get in touch with me.
Ida, if I have 1 minute, I will let you know, Thomas, what is happening. Maybe 2 minutes max. Is this acceptable, or a no is okay?
I mean, my session is in half an hour. I hope nobody's kicking us out of this room. So go.
Okay, thank you. Thomas, I don't know if you remember me, but we met at Fab Lab Lima. And then I visited you in Barcelona, and then I visited Alex Schaub, and then I was minding my own business in the company that is thriving, alive and kicking, and I decided to leave operations from my own company. So although I've been watching Fabs from the distance, I am now totally devoting myself into a totally new phase in my life. I just left you a note on the whatever is the network, Mighty Networks, to you, Thomas. And I have a question which we don't have time for you to answer here, but it's the following. If I would like to convince, force, manipulate, whatever, some decision makers in some territories to really take a look at what the Fab City opportunity, I wouldn't even say opportunity, I would say necessity is, what would be the first steps that I would have after the first very one of them, which is to be reading your book, which I have not yet ordered, but I got to know about 2 days ago, and I'm definitely going to order it. So Thomas, if you could please could spend some minutes with me in one of these days. I've just asked for a connection with you in LinkedIn, which I thought that we were linked, but we were not. And I would like to know what would be the first steps for somebody that is with a very strong will, but knows below zero about what is going on. And thank you very much for the latitude, Ida.
Thank you so much, Antonio. It's really great to reconnect. There's a link that I share in the chat. There is a link to the digital version of a book. If you don't want to buy it, you can read it in the screen. But if you prefer the paper, you can always order it. And let's find some time to talk in the coming days. Definitely. You have my email. And it's really, I mean, it's incredible to see how waves come and go, and these long-term projects at the end keeps putting things into place. So I'm really happy to see, as I said at the beginning, I'm seeing like a very old friends, old young friends, being reconnected, and I think that's something that says a lot about these projects that I believe that they need maybe 1 decade at least, but in this case a few decades to make possible.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. We keep going with Fab City Summits. Don't miss the 10 workshops that are happening just starting now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.